Cubism was an art movement started by Pablo Picasso. In Cubism, the artist would break up the subject into lots of shapes and paint it from different angles. Today we're going to do a Cubism type painting, and I will show you my example of a trumpet. To do this project, we'll be using a pencil, a Sharpie, some computer paper, watercolor paper, and some pictures of musical instruments. I just looked up musical instrument coloring or outline. We'll also use some watercolor paints. I'm going to put my pictures right here, and I'm going to decide which one that I would like to paint or draw. I thought it would be good to do a trumpet seen on the bottom left. Because my trumpet is long, I'm going to turn my paper sideways, and I want to make sure I use up as much of the paper as possible. So I'm starting with the edges of the trumpet, like the opening of the horn and the mouthpiece first. I want to make sure that those go almost to the edge of my paper. Now I'm going to lightly sketch in the top part of the trumpet, have it go out to the horn, the other part of the top, the rest of the horn, and then the part that curves around underneath is next. I'm trying to push lightly with my pencil just in case I make any mistakes that I can go ahead and erase. Now this is definitely not as long as a regular trumpet should be. I did have to kind of shorten it so that it would fit on this paper, but that's totally fine, as long as you can tell what the instrument is. You can see I have a lot of different instrument ideas. Different drums, piano, French horn, maracas, saxophone, clarinet, violin, xylophones. If you have other ones that you can think of too, feel free to do those as well. Now I'm going over my lines just a little bit harder so that I can see them a little bit better. I want to keep this drawing fairly simple because we will have to do it over and over again, so I don't want to get too many details going on. If you decided too that you wanted to do something like a saxophone, even that you could simplify, maybe by putting just one little row of buttons all the way down. I'm adding the 3 buttons for the trumpet, trying to keep those as simple as possible. And the lines that connect underneath as well. All right, I'm going to erase any lines that I don't need, just to make sure that my outline is nice and clear. I don't need my pictures of instruments anymore, or I had an extra sheet of paper that I won't need either. My outline is all ready for the next step of the project. All right, I'm going to turn my paper over and kind of mark about where my trumpet is on the other side. You can kind of see through the picture. And I want to make sure to color by holding my pencil like this on the back of my paper, only in the areas where the trumpet is. I don't need to do the entire page. I'm trying to get a nice solid covering of my pencil on the back of my paper. It helps to hold the pencil like this instead of a regular way, because you can usually do it faster and usually get a little bit more of the side of the tip to cover more of an area. This is a transfer method, so this will help transfer our drawing from this picture to our watercolor paper over and over again. If you had carbon paper or graphite paper, you could use that as well. I just missed a little bit of the tip, so I want to make sure to get this little edge right here colored in as well. Alright, now I'm putting my watercolor paper down and I'm lining up my trumpet on my watercolor paper. Now I'm going to push hard on my line right over where my trumpet is. Now I'm going to do a lot of these lines, but not the entire thing. So I'm not trying to trace my entire trumpet. There are parts that I'm going to leave untraced. Although in this first tracing, I do want to do a lot of the instrument. I'm not doing every part, but I do want a lot of it traced. So I will leave some gaps as I am working. I will not do every single section, but I am pushing hard with my pencil. I want to try to get a really good solid transfer of my lines as I go over them. Notice my other hand is holding my paper so it doesn't move. Right now you can check. You can kind of see that I've got the faint lines of my trumpet. I did not do all of them, but a good amount. Now I'm going to move my trumpet down a little bit and start tracing again. I'm going to do a variety of areas, not tracing the entire thing perfectly, but just sections of it. Again, I'm trying to make sure my paper doesn't move. I'm doing just random sections of my trumpet. You can see that it's kind of overlapped some of the other sections. Now I'm going to move it again, this time a little bit above my first one, and do some more sections of my trumpet up here. I will continue doing this over and over again until my whole paper is filled with various lines and shapes that come from this trumpet picture. Now I have my entire paper filled with the pencil marks. I'm going to go over my lines with Sharpie. So these are all of the different tracings I did. I want to go ahead and retrace so that I can see them much clearer now. So some of these shapes should look kind of funny because they don't actually go together. They're just bits and pieces of the trumpet shape. So all of these lines are lines that I transferred from my original drawing that I am retracing over with my Sharpie to make sure that I can see them better. Now this part has no like specific rhyme or reason. If there's a line that you drew in there that you don't like, then just don't trace it with your Sharpie. Or maybe there's an area that you wish you had closed, like that part of the mouthpiece there. I decided just to go ahead and close it all the way. So you as the artist can make decisions on maybe closing or opening shapes, even though that's not exactly how you trace them to begin with. It's kind of a crazy part, but trust me, it should look pretty cool when we are done. There were certain things that I thought I wanted to add, especially where the little finger pieces are for the trumpet. I wanted to make sure that some of those were more closed than I originally had traced them. So I did add some things there. I just want to make sure everything looks nice and full. Alright, I've gone over all of my lines. Now there are certain areas that are a little bit big that I just want to add some extra lines to, just to kind of break them up a little bit. I am going to be painting in shapes, so I don't want any super large areas wide open. There are a couple other areas too that I may add some repeating shapes. Again, I wanted to close a couple more of these buttons from the trumpet. Connect some of these lines so that my areas aren't quite so big, just to add a little bit more interest. All right, I think I'm liking it. Time to paint. So I'm just using a round brush, and I am going to make a monochromatic painting. Monochromatic means one, mono meaning one, and chromatic is color. So the color I've chosen is blue, and I'm going to do different values of blue for my painting. So I'm starting off by mixing quite a bit of water with my blue paint so that I have a very light blue value. I am also going to be leaving some of my shapes white. So I'm hoping to have the entire value scale from white to a dark blue on my painting. I'm starting with light blue, and I'm trying to pick shapes that do not touch each other. So you can see I'm kind of jumping around my picture here, painting in some light blue areas with my paint. I'm trying to stay inside of my Sharpie lines. And even though some areas are open, I am not going out of some of them, though most of my areas are closed shapes. I'm trying to make it so most of my light blue areas do not touch each other. With watercolor, adding more water makes your color lighter value. And then adding less water will make it a darker value. You can also darken a color by adding another layer of paint. Alright, I'm going to do a little bit less water and a little bit more paint this time, and I'm going to start doing my medium values. So I really want to pay attention, especially next to my light values, to have the color visibly darker, especially right by the edges here, as I paint. So I'm going a little bit darker this time, which means a little bit more paint and a little bit less water, so I get a darker value of color. My edge is right next to my light blue, so I do want my edge to be a little bit darker so that you can see the difference in value. And I'm jumping around so that none of my medium blue values are touching each other either. I like using a round brush from this because it can get to a nice point at the end, so you can get smaller areas, or if you need larger areas you can use more of the side of the brush. So it's really a handy tool to use for this type of painting. Again, I'm just jumping around and doing each of the medium value sections of my painting. All right, my medium's done, my light's done. Now I'm moving to my dark. So I'm using a dark blue value, and I'm filling in some areas that I want to be darker than my medium and my light values. So I'm really trying to pay attention so that I've got all 3 shades of blue on my painting. I really want to be dark by those edges so that you can see the difference in colors. So sometimes I even add a little bit of extra paint right by the edge of my shapes as I paint them in. I'm trying to make it so my dark areas don't touch each other either, so I'm jumping around my painting and doing some dark areas as well. To get this paint nice and dark, I'm not using much water at all. I want to keep it a lot more paint and a lot less water. Now that I've finished doing my light, my medium, and my dark, I just want to go through my picture one more time and make some adjustments here and there. I want my lightest blue a little bit darker in places so that you can see the difference between my light blue and my white, because right now they're kind of blending together. So I'm just going over some of my edges just to make sure that you can see the difference between the different shades and the different values of blue. This is an important last finishing touch for the painting. So go back in and make sure that your values are correct, that you have a distinct light, medium, and dark, and that you've left some of the areas white as well. Now I only use 3 values of blue, a light blue, a medium blue, and a dark blue, but you could probably take it a step farther if you wanted and go even darker yet. I'm sure that if I added another coat on some of my dark blue areas, I could get an even darker, richer blue. So feel free to try that. See if you can get even more than 4 values like what I have on mine. I hope you enjoyed doing this project with me. I find this pretty relaxing to jump around and paint all of these fun different shades. And I think the effect is so neat when it looks like this kind of cubism effect, like those grand artists from the Cubism movement. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I can't wait to see how yours turn out.